Kids nowadays probably think they're trying to imitate somebody else, but really that person that they're trying to imitate was imitating somebody else, and that motherfucker was probably trying to imitate Tony Alva.
Skateboarding has an attitude. Alva is the attitude. Raw talent, I'm gonna win everything, and kind of roll out in front of everybody and run. This is skateboarding. This is what a skateboarder is.
Tony Alva. It's Tony Alva. Like, do you get it?
Boom.
TA.
Doing the front center with his fedora, you know, and it's like, wow, that's... We put him on a pedestal.
Look at that.
He's 60 years old, still going into backyard pools. What more can you say about a human being?
He's Tony Alva, you know.
He wanted to be #1 and he became #1.
There's certain people in this world, they're meant to do what they do.
Becoming an icon was about talent, but it's also about vision and consistency.
There's this guy, Tony Alva.
Here we are 50 some odd years later, and we all know his name.
Tony
Alva.
Hello, my name's Jeff Grosso, and I'm a professional skateboarder. Am I pumped? Huh? That looks fine. Come on, check out my new style. The life of a professional skateboarder.
I've been skateboarding since about 1975. I turned pro in 1986.
And for about the past 10 years, I've been doing this little skateboard show called Loveletters to Skateboarding.
Look at me.
Jason Jesse. Letters.
It's kind of a history slash mythology slash
skateboard pornography type deal.
Just to get you stoked to go ride when you're on your downtime.
We just wanted to kind of preserve the tales of skateboarding and where it came from.
Story after story, all roads lead back to Tony Alva.
He's just the fuck you behind skateboarding.
He's what kind of cemented it into the counterculture that it was, and ultimately into the pop culture phenomena that it came to be.
He invented the front Stair. What the fuck have you done?
He's kind of our king. You know, it's an awesome, awesome story, his ups and downs. I hope you enjoy. That was a little long-winded and weird.
I've known Tony Alva, I think, since I was about 12 years old. Tony was the fucking man. Even back then, you know, I mean, he was the guy. You just see him, and you just knew that he was, you know, I mean, it's cliche, but he was a cut above the rest.
1967. I was just a straight-up sidewalk surfer. Basically, we were just surfing. We were just trying to draw a line. Nothing but sidewalks. The wheels, the boards, everything was so Freddie Flintstone.
Of course, we were all competing on clay wheels back then, and you just had to know the limit.
I didn't at first want to do it because it was too dangerous because the boards were so crap. What made me want to do it eventually was we started surfing. When the waves aren't good, you got to cross-train, and it's the same thing, but just on the streets. Guys that I really liked were the guys that had the super surf style. And the guys I took to was guys like Torger Johnson. You know, Torger could skate everything. He just had the best style, just the way he was able to like combine technical skateboarding moves with surfing moves.
I thought I knew everything about skateboarding, and here's this kid who's like, you know, unbelievable.
1973-74, Jay Adams introduced me to Tony, and probably at the Zephyr shop, Jay thought he had potential. Jay was wrong about a lot of things.
Jay and I took it to the next level because we started going low and just slamming and sliding, like, and pivoting and doing 540 slides and like Bertleman G turns. I mean, it took us to like the schoolyards, the concrete waves, and actually taking those moves onto the banks, which was not easy.
We weren't skateboarding. We were surf skating.
As I started to see Tony all the time, we became friends, and the Zephyr team was being formed, and I go, hey man, this guy's got to be on the team.
When you look at the whole Zephyr team, it was all about being an all-around skateboarder. In freestyle, in slalom, in downhill, whatever it was, you had to excel in everything and have good style. Where Tony was the first aggressive, incredible competitor and stylist, Jay was really the guy that was doing stuff that nobody would even think of. Jay loved to piss people off. Jay just had an incredibly creative mind, completely spontaneous all the time.
Those guys were not capable of that. They didn't have the mentality and they didn't have the flexibility that we had. So that's when we broke it open.
Stacy PERALTA deserved to be on the Zephyr team because he was a very, very good skateboarder. Stacy had more of a vision for skateboarding as a whole, and Tony had more of a vision as all about Tony as a whole.
Tony Alva cut me off on a wave when I was 15 years old, and I've never forgotten it. It still bothers me. Can you believe that? Something that stupid would still kind of get under my skin. I'm a goofy foot surfer. I took off. He looked at me and took off. And he rode the wave entirely in front of me, never kicked out, never gave me a piece of it. I've never forgotten that about him.
And do you think that's sort of a metaphor for his
It could be a metaphor for who he is.
Okay, yeah, you know, back in the day, you know, like Tony was a young guy, just like a lot of the other kids that were from the neighborhood. Tony had personality. He was kind of outgoing at that time. I mean, yeah.
What kind of personality? Just describe his personality.
And Tony Alva's off to a very fast start. He's way on ahead of Henry Hester.
Yeah, Tony Alva came onto our radar in a couple different ways. Really, the first contests were all slalom, freestyle, the barrel jump and the high jump, and he was beating those guys on their terrain.
Took a spill in the semifinals. You okay?
Yeah.
What happened to the bottom?
At the bottom, I just dove for the finish line as hard as I could and just rolled over the finish line. Doesn't matter as long as you get over the finish line before the other guy does.
If you're one of the growing number of Americans who like to take a ride on a skateboard, better be careful or you could end up in the wrong place, such as on your backside or in an emergency room.
California households with kids between 8 and 21 have skateboards, and if that ratio holds nationwide in the next few years, the potential market is 20 million sidewalk surfers. The skateboarding business seems at last to have really taken off.
And the urethane wheels coming in and giving us the advantage to like where we actually had like really carving ability and being able to control slides. And then actually going up vertical walls.
I don't really think anyone could touch the guy. He was that good, I thought.
You wanted to skate like Tony because it just looked the best.
One of the things that was very important to the individuals who helped propel the sport from where we live was style.
It could have been being around Bunker Spreckels. Bunker was coaching Tony to win the world championship. Bunker had style and substance. Bunker's stepfather, Clark Gable, was the biggest movie star in the world. He was the most recognizable guy on the planet. Bunker understood, because of Clark, what it was like to have an image, you know, how things worked. I think a lot of that washed across Tony, and I think Tony learned from it.
So he basically taught Tony how to be a rock star.
Was he a good ambassador for skateboarding? Like,
I think he was, because skateboarding could have easily went into the ice skating realm. It could have been really beautiful uniforms and very flashy. He made sure that it didn't do that.
I remember I used to go down Ocean Park all the time when I was a little kid. We had the light just totally timed. And we just, I don't know, we just go for it.
And then pools came in. And nobody could skate the pools like we could because of the fact that we were surfers and we read those empty pools just like they were a shore break or like they were a concrete wave.
Now that history has been written in magazines and the photos of Tony and his hair flying back, the Dogtown guys that are in pools.
All the STACY stories, the Dogtown tales, we related to this a lot.
I mean, I wanted to take pictures because of people like Tony. It's like truly inspiring. I wanted to take a picture of it. I don't even know what made me do that. I wasn't a photographer yet. I just wanted to get a picture of it because I think I was seeing something that I hadn't seen anywhere else before.
And then it turned into a business.
This is the from the very first run of boards that we did. I saw this guy, and I'd seen him skate, but I saw him in this competitive environment with everybody else. He just stood out like, this guy's got something way beyond just his skating ability, and he connects with people. And you could tell people were kind of like, oh, there's Tony Alva, you know, there's kind of in awe kind of thing. And I thought that would be cool to do something with Tony. We kind of looked at this as like, let's create this body of work where the product can stand on its own, but this stuff is really cool. It's like art.
Pete asked me to do a logo for Tony. He showed me the Dogtown logo, which I just thought was perfect. So I kind of wanted to go the opposite way. So I went to New York using the Interview magazine logo from Andy Warhol's days.
The Alva sticker just come out with like the script writing, like where it almost looks like the you know what I mean? Or almost like it doesn't really say Alva, it says Awa. Like what's Awa? What's Awa?
Initially, yeah, exactly. And that was kind of like, whatever, if you don't know that it's Alva, that's, you know, do you like it? It obviously has stood the test of time.
Everyone was hanging out at the dog bowl, late summer, early fall. You know, it was our own private pool.
Everyone was there, you know, Peralta, Shogo, Jim Muir, Jay Adams, everyone.
People were just ripping the shit out of that pool. One day, Tony was hitting the coping so hard, he decides to just pick up the board in the air and pull it back down. You know, I watched Tony do this. And I probably saw him do it a couple times before I took a picture of it because I didn't even know what the fuck was going on. You didn't know what was happening because it was just so bizarre that he would actually come out of the pool, like not doing a frontside one-wheeler or a grind, like he's coming out of the pool. No one else was doing that yet. Fucking Tony Alva did it with style. That's Tony Alva. Tony did it. No one else did that shit. Fuck that. That's bullshit. I was there. I fucking saw that shit. I went to school the next day. I didn't even know how to describe it to my friends.
Just the physical action that they're performing was amazing to me. It was like flying.
Tony had the best style in skateboarding. It was a combination of surfing and skating all wrapped into one. It was a very aggressive style.
He had the raddest skate photos, especially when his skateboarder interview came out somewhere in '78, all the Win Miller photos. I remember that was a big deal. And after that, everybody was like an Alva fan.
I always thought of him as sort of a heroic guy, and I always wanted to do heroic pictures of him where it was him and nobody else. I think we went all the way up to Oxnard. There was a skate park there. They said, hey, Tony, this is the guy we were talking about. This is Win. He's a really good photographer. And Tony looked at me and said, I'll be the judge of that. This is the kind of stuff I'd like to do, just little sequences. And around 1977, my brother-in-law, Floyd Mutrix, was working on a movie about gangs in East LA. And he asked me if I would go along with him when he went down to talk to the gang members. And I said, sure. And I brought a camera along and started to take some pictures of the guys in the gang. So that was one of the ways I got in with Tony, because I showed him my gang pictures and he was kind of impressed about that. I thought at those days that Tony was kind of inventing skateboarding. It was ushering in at the beginning of the tricky X kind of stuff, and it was a good moment in time for both of us because he was the cutting edge of what he did, and I guess I was too.
Skateboarding really was presented by a handful of dudes who really know how to make it look good, and TA was that dude.
I just remember him always being on top of his game, you know, and always able to back up what he had to say.
That's what I want to do. That's who I want to be. That's the kind of life I want to live.
It was difficult, you know, being the guy that had to chase these guys around and keep Tony out of jail. And we did Sweden, we did England, and we did France. One day we're just in Paris. Tony gets out of the car and starts skating, and these kids are just like, you know, oh my God, Tony Alva, Tony. Next thing you know, they flooded the place and autographs. We went to Canada with Jay. They just ripped everything that they were skating and completely destroyed the hotel. Inside the room, they decided to have a war of some kind. There was like skateboards thrown in the walls. They locked them out of the room, but we snuck out the back, put everything in the car, and just drove away. You know, it was like, oh my God.
This may seem an odd place to be, the middle of an empty swimming pool. But this isn't just your ordinary, everyday swimming pool.
I call Tony and I go, listen, dude, this guy wants to do this thing. I think it's going to be good. It's the first action sports TV show. It might be kind of cool. I go, do you want to do it? Tony, without a beat, he goes, I want $1,000. I want to get picked up by a limo. I want that limo to be stocked with killer weed and blow and champagne. If that guy's good with that, I'll do it. I guess he was maybe thinking that the guy wasn't going to do it. So I called him and I told him what Tony wanted. The guy goes, done.
Front sides, back sides, inverteds, aerials, handstands. If you're a skateboard freak, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Sure enough, the guy picks us up in a limo. He's smoking a doobie. We're sitting, you know what I mean? It was like amazing.
Tony, Dave, nice to have you with us. How you been? Pretty good. You guys are probably the hottest riders in the world today. How long have you been riding skateboards, and when did you first get stoked on skateboards?
Well, I started riding about when I was 6 years old, just rolling down the sidewalk.
I was about 5. I got my first skateboard for Christmas.
Well, the main thing I like to do when I skate, the feelings I get off on, I think, are the exhilaration of the speed and the power and the control. It's something that you experience just yourself because it's nobody else.
Also, Tony feels his extensive touring has helped to establish him as the originator of vertical skating.
Some of those interviews, he's very real and he really talks from the heart, you know.
And what do you think of skaters' peak ages in terms of years?
Nobody really knows the oldest age for a professional skateboarder because there hasn't been very many old professional skateboarders.
The only reason I started skateboarding is because of surfing anyways. I wanted to ride my own boards because I knew that the only one that could really design the kind of boards that I like is me. It's like I have to have a board that kind of fits that surfboards and skate and skateboards and surf. So if my boards feel like I'm surfing when I'm skating them, I'm stoked. The only thing that really works is wood. And especially laminated wood, and especially if you're pressing it yourself and you have 100% control over the design of the board. When you make a board by hand, it's like you just put the soul in it.
His were the top product as far as anyone knew. That was the name, that was the brand. You know what I mean? It was untouchable. It was like, oh, these boards are amazing, but I'll never get that. So I'm gonna get this fake Andreck board from the swap meet. Which is literally what I got.
And Alva products were rad.
Like, you look at his wheels with the Alva logo on them, and they came in all the different colors. He wrote them in the magazine, and all it took was just one picture of him holding the wheel.
That's when it was like, wow, this guy doesn't have to put a picture of himself skating because everyone knows that he's already an iconic skateboarder.
Tony never got out of himself. Tony was always Tony. We would just play. I mean, a lot of times I'd just show up and we'd be laughing. Look at this one, this is hysterical.
People knew that Tony could skate, so I was adamant about not having him skate, you know, in an ad. Because every ad, you just go through the magazine and they all look the same.
These pictures, they're lit a certain way so that there's a very strong connection to light and dark and color.
As a kid, you were like, you didn't know what was going on with those ads. And they had a huge impact on me because I was really into art and I wasn't subscribing to art magazines and I didn't have an art teacher who was teaching me about things that were happening in the late 70s. Those Vega ads were really edgy.
This is an Eric idea where he got the board and it wasn't finished, and so they just broke it off.
Just more of an attitude, that's right.
Look at that. Your parents taught you, like, don't put a plastic bag in your head.
If you weren't skateboarding, you should put a plastic bag over your head and suffocate yourself. Was that not the message?
I mean, look at this shit, man. Who has the gall?
Well, you know, you call that attitude, I think it was just piss. Like, what are these geeks doing?
He went for it, and that's what he did.
My cousin thought Tony Alva was hot. And I said, if she thinks he's hot, I got a skateboard. That's the ticket.
Him and I decided to take a trip. We were just gonna all eat mushrooms and trip out in the desert. That was our plan. And we were out in the middle of nowhere. Tripped out all night. And we start a big bonfire. And we're sitting there around this fire. We're smoking weed. We're hanging out. And all of a sudden, Tony starts chanting, Alva. Alva! Alva! What does it mean, DH? And I go, dude, it's just your name.
They had the company going. It was, you know, Tony came up with the boards and the graphics.
Honestly, during that time, the skateboard market was kind of waning.
The final demise of that first company was, you know, they tried to do the clothing thing.
We were already selling t-shirts and we started making wheels and we were selling wheels and all that. But we had clothing, you know, like stuff. I was introduced to a designer and he put together this kind of crazy line of stuff that you wouldn't have sold in a skate shop if your life depended on it. And they named it Alva Action. They wanted us to make a bunch of Alva roller skate wheels. So we made Alva cowboy boots with these really crazy colors. And then we bolted roller skates on them and gave them to these models. They do this show and we didn't even have the line out yet. And the next thing you know, it's the hit of the whole thing. We're on the cover of Footwear News. We don't even make shoes. We got all these orders from stores like Saks Fifth Avenue, Bergdorf Goodman in New York City. Studio 54 wanted the Alva roller girls to come over and do this whole thing. Bloomingdale's in New York City wanted us to design the whole window on 57th. So it just went down a rat hole trying to keep up and burning money like it was going out of style. And while it got a lot of publicity, a lot of attention, and generated a lot of initial sales, the core skate industry was just disappearing.
Skateboarding just died. It just like one day it was gone.
Turn to 1980, skateboarding is dead and everybody's in a fucking parking lot with no shade and you're riding curves. And Alva's still there.
Ted Nugent and like Foghat, that kind of music was played at the parks all the time, and then it switched over one day to Blondie and Devo.
Was the beginning of my idea of freedom, because you could be radical, play the music loud.
This is the perfect mix. I mean, Nugent was great, and Hendrix was amazing, and Led Zeppelin was amazing, but then came punk rock.
Darby Crash introduced me to Tony at Stardust Ballroom. That is when I got my Tony Alva button, is Darby gave me that night. He was so excited to be introducing Tony Alva to his friends.
Skateboarding and punk rock, for some reason, it was like the perfect marriage of just like madness.
1980, Ian's first band, the Teen Idols, they were in San Francisco. We're at Target Video. And so I said, you know, Tony Alva's here. And we're like, what? I mean, we flipped out.
It didn't occur to us. He didn't cut his hair off. Like, we just didn't make that connection.
And we walked over and we're just like speechless.
It blew our mind. We had no idea that Tony was like down.
Ian and I, our voices rising. We're like, are you Tony Alva? And he went, yeah, I'm Tony Alva. And we're like, it was like meeting 10 Led Zeppelins.
Do you remember the light beam ad with the boards on the pods and it said, hey, fuck all that other bullshit that you guys are seeing, I'm still into it because it's fun, blah, blah, blah. That ad said it in one paragraph. Yeah. Why I still skateboard. It was at a time in skateboarding where skateboarding was sucking commercially. It was just biting. It was Action Now days, dude. Yeah. Come on, that ad might have been in Action Now.
I think maybe it was.
Something to not be proud of.
His skating changed, you know?
He went from being at the top of his game, you know, selling hundreds of thousands of skateboards, to having nothing.
Let me tell you something, man. I remember a time in the 80s when Tony was going to dental school to become a dental hygienist. You know? People don't understand this fucking pro skateboarding shit. That was life, man. People fucking gotta live their lives, you know? People were trying to make a living. The skateboarders didn't have no guarantee.
Skateboarding was just dead. I saw him in Japan. He was the only guy out there skateboarding. All the Japanese like worshipped him like he was the skate god. Over here in America, like people wouldn't give him the credibility. But he was like even ripping back then, even like binging out the next day. He would like be there, the first guy at the ramp in the morning.
So when we heard Tony was coming back, and we started seeing him milling around the contests and stuff and kind of hanging around and talking to Stacy and Stacy, you know, with this Jack's vest, and it was like, fuck yeah, this is so fucking badass.
One day, Tony's like, I gotta get my company going again. We went down to the skate shop in Huntington Beach on Main Street. Tony talked the guy into giving him 20 boards, and they were like 20 Bonite blanks. And we took those things back to my garage, and that's when Mondo came up with the scratch graphic. And then we took those 20 boards back to the shop, and the guy gave us 40 more, and we went and did it again. And I think we did it another time or two after that. And then Tony's like, fuck, I just gotta have somebody start pressing boards for me.
And then Alva kind of made that second comeback, I guess, in like 81, 82. It seemed like a whole nother company.
Classic question, plans for the future?
Well, my plans naturally for the future are to travel a lot, and I want to promote Alva products to the #1 skateboarding product in the world, as well as maybe use my Alva logo to promote other products that have my name on them.
The very first skateboard t-shirt I bought was the Alva logo with the scratches through it, you know, the claw scratches, and a black t-shirt with the red and white. Red, black, and white might have made an impression. I might have used those colors in my art.
We totally snagged it from the Bruce Lee movie, Enter the Dragon. You're like, oh, we're gonna do the scratches, and we're gonna put the Alva logo, but it's gonna be goth, and we're just gonna do black boards.
You know, where he was like, had white face on, and he sort of looked like Dave Vanian from The Damned, or I'm not sure what he was, Kristen Death was kind of happening.
This new photography with Chokey Boy, you know, like, Now who's Chokey Boy? We had Raul Vega here before, and now there's this new thing with Chokey Boy.
Yes. Cool. I shot a fair amount in black and white also.
It was supposed to be like gothic. You know, the gothic people always trip me out.
Did you ever see the Irving Penn photo of Salvador Dali and he's throwing the cat? I wanted to kind of pay a little homage to that.
It was just a different scene, a different style.
Lots of beer, lots of fumes, fucked up garage scene. Mondo would just paint them spontaneous, and every one of them had to be different. Just high on like fumes and anything you could get and just going for it. It was just crazy, like a total art project of just like the most insanity, like fueled creativity ever. That's how Mondo ran it. It's just garage after garage, making boards down the garage, having like crazy, like debauched sessions of like just like sex, drugs, and rock and roll in order to pay the rent. We'd have these big house parties. And then we started getting more into like adding the cocaine into the thing, you know, so we could just go 24/7. So there was like no sleep, you know, no sleep till Brooklyn. We were just like, fucking, let's do this, keep on going. So we'd work as late and as hard as we could and then just crash and burn after having another big like drinking bout or whatever, and then wake up and work again for another 3 to 5 days. You know, it was just this insane cycle.
It was like in my head, I was like, I'm gonna be Bruce Lee. And then I met Tony Alva. And I was like, I'm gonna be the Bruce Lee on a skateboard.
Love Christian. Christian Hosoi is probably my favorite team rider of all time.
Tony Alva walks right up to Christian and goes, Christian, I'm starting my company up. We want to talk to you about Skating Force. You're the only guy I'd even consider. Christian just had his Sims board with the Rising Sun, #1 selling board. I was like, how could he quit the biggest company in the world to skate for Alva, you know? And he's like, dude, that's Tony Alva. So I was like, wow.
I really wanted the Hosoi, the Alva Hosoi with like the kind of Asian looking sun thing with the spikes.
His attitude was, I'm the best. And I was like, wow, dude. It didn't matter if he was, you know, skateboarding anymore. He was still the best. I went from the corporate kind of office to the garage. Alva had the Scoundrels band. We were watching Black Flag, and I mean, No Parents, raging like on acid, and like, we were like nuts. And then I was like sitting there, and I'm like, yeah, Eddie.
Yeah. Eddie, man, you know, you need to quit, pal. You need to skate for Alva. You'll be the amateur, I'll be the pro. We'll travel around the world, get chicks, and it'll be awesome. We're driving through Santa Monica to a little residential area, and we pull up to a house. And we go, I go, where are we at? He's like, we're at the Alva factory. And right then I almost started crying because it was like a garage. And Chris was like, this is awesome. I'm like, no, it's not awesome. When I got on Alva, the very first thing Tony Alva told me, he goes, Eddie, we're gonna be flying you out to contests and stuff like that. And I just wanna let you know, if you don't feel like entering, don't enter. We don't care what place you get, dead last, it doesn't matter. Just go there and represent. I'm pro now, and I don't even have to do good in a contest. From that moment, it was all fun and games.
Then it grew into a posse. They started to have long hair, and they started to be like the bad boys in skateboarding.
Gonz was a little kid. I remember they were punking him, and they got dog poop and they threw it in his hair.
That was when I quit, and they became kind of like a gang now.
Like Hell's Angels, but on skateboards.
The whole bad boy trip.
We saw what the other teams were like, especially the PAL team.
We were like, oh, we don't want to look like those guys no matter what. And I love those guys, don't get me wrong, you know. I didn't really love them back then. As a matter of fact, I was kind of like, those guys are Boy Scouts, we're badasses. ditches, pipes, pools, streets, you name it. Anything that was skatable, we skated it.
I go to this backyard pool and Tony Alva's standing there. I'm like, hey Tony, I'm Murph, how you doing? He's like, man, you should have seen me here yesterday. I was ripping, man. I was tearing this bowl up. And so I went along with it, going, yeah, you're ripping, man. High fives, right on. And I was stoked. I was right in the pool with Tony Alva. But then after a couple of minutes, I realized that he wasn't kidding and that he was fully like, yeah, I'm rad and you should know that. And I was just thinking, I was like, all right, man, I guess this is Tony Alva, man.
And one time we went with Gator and these guys skated this ramp on mushrooms and I could barely skate because the wood grain was so weird and trippy to me. As you get up to the lip, you're tripping out and I was like, wow, wood grain. So it was always part of my thing of let's do like a wood grain thing.
Let's do our own thing. We got our own look. No apologies, man. Just be yourself.
But they would get the weirdos, right? And it was basically like built around like the scene, like hanging out.
They just had the coolest image. I remember the Alva Posse ad where they're all black and white shot, they're all hanging out, and then you've got like Tony Hawk, Pencil Neck Geek over here, and then the Alva guys. Like, who do you want to hang out with?
Everybody came from a different city, and we pretty much had the whole domestic United States, including Hawaii, covered.
We got Craig Johnson and Gibson with First Guys, and then we got Murph. And then we got Freddie, JT from Florida. We got Hartzell from Hawaii. And that was a big part of the Alva team. Cooksey was the best, man. He was hardcore. He ripped it up, take the biggest slams. Didn't shower much.
So here's the deal. This isn't a team. This is a family. This is an American family. It's the Bad News Bears of skateboarding. What do you think, man?
Well, what I think is, like, if you can't accept it, then go fuck yourself.
And he doesn't mean that in a bad way. He's just saying.
Beat it, you Val jerk.
I mean, just listen to that. Val jerk. It's just stupid. He whored himself out for that line. It was hilarious. Val jerk. Like, he would never say that in life. Val jerk.
I did it because it was just basically I was going to get paid to say the line over and over, and just do it over and over. You know, flick the cigarette, do the line, beat it, you Val jerk. Snarling with the teeth missing, and you know, I think I'd just gotten in like another fist fight at a bar somewhere or something, got my teeth smashed out again.
I was the production designer on Thrashin', and of course I met Tony on Thrashin', and of course he was just like, my eyes were like popping out of my head. Who is this insane, awesome person?
But I'm proud not to be a dagger. I think the only reason I got Thrashin' is because I had a billboard of the Goonies outside. Because I think I was still pretty bad at that point. Like, I'm positive I was bad at that point. I could skateboard, which was a major plus, but I remember meeting Tony, doing a reading, and I don't know that I've met a lot of people in my lifetime now. I don't think I've ever been so kind of stricken as I was with Tony. It was like, I looked over and I was like, I was like, I didn't know. I didn't know what to do. Because there's Tony Alva.
I know for sure in one day on the set of Thrashin', we had 11 ambulance rides to the hospital because of skating accidents. 11 one day, yes.
My name's John Gibson. Hey, what's up? My name's Jim Murphy.
We weren't the best, we weren't the prettiest, but we were just the people's people, the coolest guys out there skating.
Hey, you'll be in trouble. You gotta do what you gotta do.
None of us really cared too much about being jocks. We're just running far away from it.
I felt like I was on the baddest team in skateboarding that you ain't gonna get on because they ain't gonna ask you to get on.
And this is when it was all about going 10 feet out,
right? It was, how long can you stall an invert and how high can you do a backseat air? You know, the leather jacket, the jean vest, and the dirty, scoundrelly hair, everyone but Dan for.
Guess what? I saved so much money on fucking shampoo. Fuck yourselves.
Skateboarding is my life.
We'll go into the bars and all the chicks would be like, oh my God, these guys are crazy.
We were so dirty and so nasty and so gnarly, and chicks loved it.
I dig them all, man. They had rad styles. They're doing what you're supposed to do, which is just connect with people on some level, in some way. Tony wanted his guys to have an approach and a vibe.
It's marketing genius, like you just take it to the people. Because all that other stuff, that competitive, it was elitist. The locals couldn't even relate.
Later on, he just moved to the beach, got married, and surfed all day. Just kind of in the sidelines. And we just kind of just took over and skated, and the posse was tight. So we just traveled around the world.
And it wasn't Alva?
Alva wasn't there.
Skating back in the early 90s, it was like whatever, small wheels and big baggy clothes and whatever, and everyone, I don't know, we still skated, and Tony was, I'm sure he was still skating.
I could barely even get a set of 55 tires to put on my board back then. We were taking like frickin' ecstasy and like drinking Patron and like smoking weed like I was going out of style and just mixing all our chemicals just to keep that high going, you know? We were trying to keep stoked and keep like kind of the fire burning, you know, as far as skateboarding went. And we went underground, and I did wear the baggy pants, man, because that's all there was, you know, and they worked pretty good for indie airs and mute airs and stuff like that. You could grab up between those baggy pants and just lock it in, and just, that was just the style back then. But we were still skating.
Hola, ¿cómo estás?
Tony's okay. He always welcome. He's nice. And he always help us.
Because we know, you know, basically this is private property, and that we're privileged to be here. We went to San Marcos, got a warehouse, barely survived that, made it to Oceanside, got the shop. We're living in the back of the shop, then turned the shop into an art gallery, so there's the party thing again. We're having these big parties to pay rent. We expand and we get a little warehouse, so we got the warehouse, the art gallery, the shop.
And then all of a sudden, next thing you know, there's an article about Dogtown. And then you see Peralta realize, oh, I could make a documentary about this. There's so much footage from back in the day, and film does what it does.
Dogtown like won Sundance. Then we win Spirit Awards, and we win Toronto Film Festival. So we're on fire.
Not only did it breathe new life for us, but it breathed new life into the skateboard world itself.
There's money and there's the fame, there's all of these so-called things that I should be stoked about. I wasn't that stoked because I was just partying so hard and drinking hard.
If kids are trying to copy me, they better be ready to suffer the consequences. It's Alva.
A lot of us did suffer the fucking consequences. You know, I'm a perfect example of that. When you grow up and your heroes are a bunch of fuck-ups, and the entire culture of skateboarding was centered around youth and rebellion, it was really attractive to try to outdo these guys. And it all starts out as fun and games, right? Like, I'm gonna be just as gnarly as my heroes. And because skateboarding is such a progressive thing, it's like, okay, well, they took it to here, and then we took it to here, and so, you know, and it's this leapfrog thing, and it's the same with partying.
He fucked up time and time again. I fucked up time and time again.
It stops working, you know? And then you're trying to recreate it. And then you're just walking around as kind of the worst part of that.
He was like a ghost for a while, you know? Like, I feel like my years of growing up in Venice were probably some of his more darker times.
There are no cameras around. There is nobody wants to stick a video camera in your face because they're afraid you're gonna take their fucking video camera.
Super angry all the time at everything. Like fucking weighing like 175 pounds, bloated face, freaking rings under my eyes, just total, just like freaking Pillsbury Doughboy version of TA. I was losing everything.
And once you start fucking spiraling down that hole, it's a bitch to try to climb out of. We literally watched him just decay in front of our eyes. Someone you just did not want to be around.
So the bottom really is that everybody's growing up and you're not, you know? And at that point, it becomes lonelier and lonelier and lonelier.
And unless you have the fucking balls to go through with it, you're left with, you know, I mean, you only got a couple things coming to you. You know, you're gonna go to prison, you're gonna die, you're gonna go crazy, or you're gonna get clean.
And then I just hit a bottom, man. And then 2006, I just got totally fed up with everything, including myself, and decided to just turn it over. Just got clean and sober. A lot of guys helped me. Guys that were already clean and sober. They helped me like get on the path and stay on the path.
He's been through a lot of changes. Dude's been through a lot of different headspaces. I mean, the fact he's skating at 60, I mean, I think it's hard to imagine. But when you lift the grid off, all that shit goes away, and he's still fucking skating. And you're like, all right, that dude was for real. It wasn't the shirts, it wasn't the stickers, it wasn't the decks, it wasn't the shoes. The essence was the motion, the engagement with the terrain. And that shit was for real. That was the true essence. And I think that's the thing, you can't take that out of people. And I think with him, it seems that he's good evidence of that.
Everybody always thought I was the most self-centered, egotistical maniac on the planet. If I competed with the sun for the center of the universe, no mas, you know? I'm not living that way anymore. And then I refuse to go back to that style of selfishness and self-centeredness in living. I don't want to be that guy anymore. I want to be the guy that's evolved to where we're at now.
You have TA and the Zephyr thing. You have TA Loganerski. You have TA in Alva. Then you have Alva for the rest of his existence to now. He always kept skating.
Can you imagine when we were even 20? Imagine that we think that we'd ride a skateboard when we were 60?
No, I wasn't, no. I had no plans of being 60.
He just embodies everything about it.
Think about this for a minute. You can't get any pro basketball player or any pro athlete of any kind to play with any of the quality they did when they were young. They can't do shit, let alone stand on a skateboard and do a fucking edger on it.
That's why you have a 60-year-old professional skateboarder named Tony Alva.
He's still setting the bar for the simple fact that he still surfs, he still skates, and he's playing music, and he's active.
He's never broken a bone. He's like a cat.
Definitely, I was probably one of the first kids to just fly off the ramp, get in air, throw it, like, you know, this crazy, like, I'm #1 salute, you know.
At 60 years of age, he will still risk sneaking into someone's backyard and riding their pool. Amazing.
You can't be a cultural icon and play it safe.
Unbelievable. Because I never thought any of us would still be here talking about this.
And for him to be doing that at 60 years old, he's a motherfucking man.
Standing in front of like Stacy and Jay and like the cross and like the sun setting, dude, this reminds me why I started this journey and where I'm going in this journey. It's my story, but it's about Dogtown, it's about Santa Monica, it's about surfing, it's about skateboarding, it's about Stacy Peralta, it's about Jay Adams, it's about Jesse Martinez, you know, it's like the list goes on, dude. I can still feel it. Like right now, I feel it. I feel like connected to something that's real. I'm not a slave to drugs, I'm not a slave to alcohol, I'm not a slave to money, I'm not a slave to my cell phone, I'm not a slave to my fucking car. I can give a fuck, man. I got this, and I got this. And that's all I need.
Oh man, how can someone, you know, fall like that?
It's like watching your fucking grandpa like fall down some stairs or something, you know? But he just like gets back up and does it again.
I don't fall that much, but when I do fall, it fucking hurts.
You know, what more can be said? It says it all. This image says it all.
You're fucking totally blowing it.
Coping is abusive. I don't even know how people ride that shit.
Wear the fedoras that we bought at like thrift stores that were old men that had probably croaked, you know, with their hats on, and here we are wearing them.
In the 70s, he told me that he lived in that room right there.
Tony Alva at 60, a strange and tragic occurrence.
The thing that I'd like to thank you for is just for influencing my young mind and helping me find my way and find my people and giving me the attitude. Like, I was fucking lost as a little kid, man, and then
We all were, dude.
and then I got this attitude, you know, like Bad Brains. I got this PMA, like I got this fucking attitude, and without that, I would not fucking be here. And it makes me so fucking emo and weird. Like, I owe my whole life to, like, everything that I am, I owe to skateboarding, and I owe to you. So thanks a lot, and thanks for watching. This has been The Letters. Go skateboard. Turn this shit off.